Hi, dreamers. I'm Percival,
And I'm Viviane.
and we are your hosts of the Dreamscape Chronicles.
If you would like to share a story for us to tell or come on the show and share it yourself, we welcome all dreamers to contact us at dreamscapechronicles@outlook.com. And we want to thank everybody who's already shared their story with us. We will be going through those soon. So thanks, everyone.
Very much appreciated.
Yes, very excited. So, episode 3.
Number 3,
So, what's the episode about this time, Percival?
Kanashibari.
In other words, friends, sleep paralysis.
Oh, yes. Sleeper. So, what's on the agenda aside from this? What's on the table?
What?
What's in the envelope?
What's in the box?
What's in the box?
It's just terrible. We'll cut all this out. So sleep paralysis. We kind of briefly discussed this in some of our older episodes, but it is a temporary loss of muscle control attributed to atonia, which we did discuss in our last episode. And that happens just before you fall asleep or just before you wake up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. Spot on.
And we already know what atonia is, but you want to briefly describe what it does or what its purpose is?
So, atonia is pretty much your body paralyzing itself in your sleep so you don't act out your dreams.
So, like, I won't murder you in the middle of the night when I'm cutting down a tree in my sleep.
Yes. Or if you have a John Wick moment in your dreams. Yeah.
You won't actually murder 6 people. Love it. That's great. So actually, this is like fairly common. People often experience hallucinations during these episodes too. There's 2 types of hallucinations, though. A lot of people don't know. There's isolated sleep paralysis hallucinations, which are not typically connected to any other narcoleptic diagnosis or sleep disorder. They're just kind of like one-offs.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then there's recurrent sleep paralysis hallucinations, which can be associated with narcolepsy. Because, like we learned in one of our last episodes, sleep paralysis is basically your brain not being able to control its wakefulness, which is the same concept as narcolepsy. So it does fit in that category.
That makes sense.
Now, what kind of sleep paralysis hallucination do you normally have?
So mostly I've seen the swarms of little shadow figures. And then I've seen the old hag or the night hag and another taller cloaked shadow. Probably about 6 foot tall. Decent height. Nothing like too crazy tall, but always looks like it has a cloak on it. Like it's covered. The hag does too for the most part. Just hunched over. Like maybe 3 or 4 foot kind of hunched over.
Jeez.
So those are the 3 that I see.
They sound like very friendly visitors.
Oh yeah, they're pleasant.
So nice. Do they bring gifts?
Just panic attacks.
Yep, that makes sense. First of all, we learned about hypnagogic hallucinations in one of our last episodes, which is when we're falling asleep, and that's when the hallucinations are happening.
Like whenever you're sleep deprived.
Yes, and you start falling asleep and you're seeing the hallucinations in between.
Gotcha.
Yes. However, there's also hypnopompic, and those hypnopompic hallucinations are when you're waking up. So in between having had REM sleep and now you're waking up and you're not fully awake yet.
I had a friend who had some hypnopompic plants.
I don't think that's right.
You're probably right.
Under these 3 categories includes intruder hallucinations, chest pressure hallucinations, and VM or vestibular motor hallucinations. So intruder, that kind of, it's like the perception of a dangerous presence in the room, a lot of that sixth sense thing.
So when my spidey sense is tingling.
Exactly. That's
Got
exactly
it.
right.
Got it.
And then chest pressure, that is exactly what it sounds like. What many people refer to as the incubus. It incites feelings of suffocation, something sitting on your chest or physically even choking you.
I thought incubus and succubus were more bound chicka wow wow.
Their interests vary.
Okay, got it.
Yes. And then that leaves our third, which is vestibular motor or VM hallucinations. And those could be described as like the feeling of flying or the out of body experience.
Okay, so yeah, so two of those I can say that I've experienced.
Okay, yeah.
So I would say the shadows and the out of body one, the astral projection, are probably those two.
That makes sense.
I've never really had the chest pressure.
Something sitting on your chest, you mean, or
Like your body feels heavy, but I can tell that it's my body weight, not being able to control my muscles. It just feels like my body's heavy and it feels like there's pressure on your entire body. It's really not your chest, but I think because people are aware of their breathing,
oh,
the ability to not move your muscles in your chest might feel like you're having a hard time breathing.
yeah, like you're feeling the weight of your
Right.
body.
Because it's not that I don't feel it, I just don't attribute it to something sitting on my chest.
Well, and not to sound like a murderous sociopath, but dead weight is definitely a thing, right? So, like, if you try to lift a body that has absolutely no muscle stimulation in it, and it is literally dead weight, it is much heavier than if you're lifting someone who's actually helping themselves as well. So, it's kind of that when you're locked in your own body, you have that dead weight feeling of your own body because you are aware you're there, but you have absolutely no motor control.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, do you know how many people get sleep paralysis?
No, actually, I'm really glad you brought that up because it's not as uncommon as people would think. Maybe people don't talk about it, or possibly because we don't remember our dreams all the time. Maybe that's what it is. But actually, 20% of people have episodes of sleep paralysis. And of those 20%, 75% of those episodes involve hallucinations.
See, that's why I think there's more to this. Not only that, these aren't just all Americans either.
Oh, no, no. And no one knows the cause of it. It goes culturally pretty much all over the world. It's incredible.
And to me, that's a huge unique factor that so many different cultures see very similar things.
Definitely. No one knows the cause of it, but everyone has their hypothesis. And it does depend on where you are. Like culturally, there's different explanations. Popular psychologist theory would be during REM, there is a heightened level of brain activity and breathing, blood pressure, and heart rate all increase. When you would experience detailed dreams and vivid nightmares in your REM, it amps up sleep paralysis in that way. So you do kind of see some really trippy stuff. Because sleep paralysis occurs between wakefulness and sleep, these dreamlike, sometimes nightmarish sensations continue into waking, causing these demonic hallucinations.
Yeah, but what if they're not hallucinations, though?
I mean, you never know, right? I mean, because a lot of people, like I said, it's culturally based. So some people refer to them as demons. Some people refer to them as, a punishment. Some people refer to them as ancestral. It's a dead relative.
So, this is a good reminder to send in your stories.
Yes, guys. Yes. If you are at home and you're like, oh, yeah, I remember this one time I saw, please tell us. Let us know. What did you see?
I don't care if it's a djinn in your sleep, the hag, the hat man, aliens,
Or great grandma Ida,
yeah, any of this stuff.
It could be anyone.
Even Krampus.
Yeah, who knows?
Maybe you woke up with sleep paralysis on Christmas Eve one night and seen the Krampus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Could be. Could be. But yeah, guys, just send them in. We are thrilled to hear. But yeah, these hallucinations are not dreams in these theories. They are an overlap between sleep and wakefulness. Some say that these sleep demons are your brain trying to make sense of something that you're aware that it's there. Your brain's trying to take like a dreamlike path to explaining it to yourself. So, for instance, like you're perceiving that your cat is at the end of the bed and that's what's actually happening. But during sleep paralysis between wakefulness and sleep, maybe your brain is perceiving it as a goblin and it's coming at you.
So that's understandable, but then there are plenty of accounts that there's nothing there to even give you a false sense of something's there.
That's true.
So, like, you're having a full on physical manifestation of something in your sight.
Mm-hmm. Interesting to think about. Well, some also attribute these hallucinations to a loss of the sense of self. For instance, like someone who loses a limb experiences phantom limb syndrome. Someone who will lose their sense of self during sleep paralysis makes their brain try to make sense of what it is perceiving, causing these ghostly or demonic hallucinations.
Unique. That was a lot to take in. Sorry.
No, it is a lot because it's a lot of theories and other people they explain it differently. Japanese culture even has very elaborate ideas of what happens during abnormal sleep patterns. Egypt has also created much artwork and documented abnormal sleep in their culture.
Should we tell about the certain types of entities that people see?
Oh, for sure. I know that's pretty culturally based as well too.
For instance, the Night Hag or the Old Hag is from the origins of Newfoundland and it appears as a witch. And that's pretty much the one I think I see.
That's crazy.
There is also Mara from Scandinavia, and it's a nightmare spirit.
That's very strange.
I'm just going to read a few. So in Egypt, they believe that the jinn is the cause of it. And it's just pretty much a supernatural creature that terrorizes and is harmful to humans. Jinn are a whole different topic, and there's a lot of background.
Yeah, there's definitely more to unpack.
So, I mean, it's understandable for the region and their culture for why they believe this is what these are. And that branches off into some different types of paranormal crossings.
Yeah, true. Why don't you bring us back to Kanashibari?
Oh yeah, so the Kanashibari, that's what the Japanese people believe is sleep paralysis in Japan.
Isn't it also used as like the word for binding?
Yeah, it means binding metal.
So like in a sense it's talking about that binding feeling that you're in sleep paralysis, you're locked in.
Yeah, so I guess the idea is like it's a supernatural chains that are basically from a vengeful spirit or some kind of angry yokai
Yeah.
that essentially does the same thing as most of these other ones. They paralyze you and sit on your chest.
Yeah, that's very bizarre. I mean, it's pretty accurate though. If you've ever experienced that, it kind of gets to the point pretty quick.
Yeah, and Brazil has a unique one. I guess an older woman form, and she comes and sits on your chest if you eat too much before you go to bed.
Oh, wait, like a punishment for
I
overeating?
Yeah, I think it's in the sense that it is more just preventing bad habits of eating too much before going to bed, maybe,
Mm,
and
there's a
then
word for that.
mixing it with sleep paralysis.
A cautionary tale.
Yeah,
That's interesting. Yeah, a lot of cultures kind of explain it differently.
most of them seem to be female in figure, aside from the Hat Man, which is, I think, a more recent type of entity that people have been seeing. But that is interesting that you mentioned the incubus because if you look back to the story of Lilith was like the first essentially. She I guess these incubus and succubus, they're similar to her. That's why they appear as a female presence,
Mm,
from Lilith to the succubus to like these female entities that come in your sleep paralysis could all potentially kind of be the same type of thing, maybe.
yeah, there could be a correlation.
I feel like no matter what, these things are some kind of shapeshifters.
Well, and what's crazy is almost every culture in history has a version of a scary entity sitting on your chest. Specifically that.
Right.
I mean, it's throughout the world and throughout history. And actually, historic and cultural references are where we got the perception of these things to be demons, because once it reached Western culture, that's what they were describing them as.
I can see with the general populace's religion in Western culture why these things would be perceived as demonic.
Yeah, Judaic and Christian beliefs have very much formed it.
And I mean, we can't rule that out.
No, we can't. I mean, who knows?
They could all be that, or they could all be aliens, or they could be some other interdimensional beings altogether. But one way or another, I don't think these things really present themselves as they are.
Oh, definitely not. And going back to sleep paralysis as a whole, there's actually different ways that this can be worsened or increased, I guess I could also say, if we're not putting a tag on it.
Mhm.
And one of those ways is actually having a near-death experience. So I found that very interesting because, it's like 10 to 18% of people who come through near-death experiences characterize it as being a heightened sensoria and expanded awareness, temporal distortions, intensified emotions, even out of body experiences, and other, perceptual anomalies like bright light or like an unusual light they see. And then near death experience does make you more susceptible to sleep paralysis.
Wow, okay, I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, even some of them mention seeing non-corporeal beings. Some even describe them as relatives, dead relatives.
Yeah, I think my near-death experience, there was definitely a light, but it was just kind of like floating in darkness and just the two entities that spoke to me.
Mm.
But I never witnessed anything before I was kind of snapped back.
You did have that OBE with it, and that is very intriguing because afterward, that's kind of what worsened it, I think, too, for you.
That was one of the huge influences for me to start digging into this and understanding more of either what it is in the brain or spiritually that happens with some of us, because not all people who have had near-death experiences also experience these other phenomenon and vice versa. That's not a prerequisite to sleep paralysis or lucid dreaming or astral projection. But it seems like you're saying that a person who has had a near death experience is prone to these other things more.
Oh, definitely. And we'll get more into that next episode too, but that is definitely what it's suggesting so far with what we've researched.
I can believe that.
Yeah. Well, do you want to talk about maybe some of your sleep paralysis experiences? I know you have quite a vast many.
Yeah, let me start with some early ones. So, one of the first times, and these are kind of old memories. So, these are 30 plus year old memories. And I've had so many of these that a lot of them I know for a fact I've forgotten more than half of this stuff.
Sure. Although, if I can interject, I have noticed it's really strange that as we go back through these old memories, some of them keep coming to light. Like I'm remembering some of the things just because I'm like digging in the right spot of my brain, I think.
Yeah, I think we're almost doing kind of our own regression therapy,
Yeah, I guess we are.
thinking about all this stuff. Yeah, because it's one of those things. I think whenever you have trauma, especially like I did when I was a child, you block a lot of things out.
Yeah.
So really thinking about this stuff and these things that happened in that time kind of bring things almost flooding back in a way.
Yeah, for sure though.
Stuff that we haven't thought about in decades.
Decades. Yeah, I was about to say. But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interject, but continue. We got it.
So, whenever I was younger, the first time it happened was shortly after my near death experience. And I just remember laying in bed, trying to go to sleep. and I just had this weird sensation, not really like my body was vibrating, but like kind of tinkly when you're falling asleep.
Yeah.
And then it started off as like a low ringing, buzzing noise, kind of like a low hum.
Yeah.
And then it got very, very loud, so loud that it was like ear piercing, like painful to hear. And then after a few moments like that, it would just kind of all stop. Noise is in the room that you could hear, like if you had a fan on or the TV. But I was laying in bed, and this was a tiny little twin bed. I was super young.
Kid-sized bedroom.
Yeah, and the closet was to the left of the wall in front of me, and it was probably maybe a 8 foot long by 10 foot long room.
Okay.
Not a very big room, but I remember my closet was always shut, and they left the bedroom door to my room open at nighttime. And for some reason, this one night I was laying there on my back, and then after, this ringing, after the noise got so loud and stopped, then I realized I couldn't move and I was paralyzed.
Oh, wow.
So I was kind of freaking out because it had never happened before, and I was trying to yell out and move, and I couldn't move. And not knowing what it was or had ever hearing about it, being a young kid, it freaks you out a lot. So
Yeah, I mean, you can't really fathom that as a kid.
yeah, and I was just like, I felt like maybe I was dying or something. Like I wasn't sure what was happening. That's around the time whenever I started noticing, like in the bottom left corner of like where the closet was, like the door to the closet was closed, but it was like kind of in the very left far hand corner of the room was like a little shadow, and like the kind of triangle shadow that the wall made with the door that was open a little bit.
Mm.
And then it looked like it moved. It looked like it moved away from the corner towards the dresser that was next to it. And then I was like, all right, that's weird. And it's freaking me out even more because now I'm like, I feel like there's something in the room with me. I can't say or do anything. So, like, I'm freaking out more and more. I'm starting to panic. And then, like, I am like tearing up because, like, I'm freaking out. I
You
don't know
still
what's
can't
going on.
move.
The little black shadow kind of ran back to where it came from. And then it ran past the door to the right of the room, which would have been behind the main door to leaving the bedroom. And I know for a fact that I seen this thing because the door was wiped to the closet. So you just see this little black shadow kind of shoot across the bottom of it. And it was probably maybe like 2 foot, like very, very short, maybe the height of the door.
Okay. Like halfway up.
Yeah, if even that.
If that, yeah.
I finally, at that point, started coming out of it. And I remember waking up in a panic, and I ran out, and I was like yelling, like telling my mom. I was like, I don't know what was happening. There was something in my room.
Oh, man.
And of course they didn't believe me, and they were like, just go back to bed. It was a nightmare, yada, yada, the same thing.
Yeah.
Probably every, 80s and 90s kids' parents told them. So that was the first time. It wasn't too eventful, but after that, the second time, it got more progressive. So it happened. And then I was like, okay, this is happening again. Same painful ringing, then to paralysis. And like the one shadow that I saw before, now there were like multiples. And they would kind of go in different directions, but they seemed that they knew that I could see them possibly at that point.
Mm.
Like after maybe the first time, it didn't realize I could see it, or maybe it did recognize I could finally see it.
Oh, no.
Because after that, I noticed that there were more of them, but they would try to stay out of sight in my peripherals or around corners or objects that I couldn't
Oh,
really
it's so
see.
creepy.
So yeah, so like these things almost seemed very sentient, like they were aware that I was aware. It wasn't like standing there doing whatever.
Yeah.
So I've had tons of these little 1 foot to 2 foot little shadow things running around that I've seen during sleep paralysis pretty regularly. Some of the bigger entities, the two that I've seen, they came after that. those are more elaborate experiences with these beings.
Like you say, elaborate versus more generic. You know, are you talking like the length of the time that you had in the experience and what was happening? I'm imagining these smaller child-sized entities were probably shorter experiences.
Well, it could be anywhere from like a few minutes till 10 minutes at the most, I would say. I wouldn't say that they really went past 10 minutes on
Oh,
average,
wow, yeah.
but more elaborate that these things were super aware and almost seemed like the little things brought the big things.
Mm.
Either there was enough of the little things concentrated to catch these other things' attention, or the little shadows were part of working with the bigger entities.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, this is just a theory I have. This is stuff that I've thought about for 30 years. So it's just my speculation and ideas of what these things could be and how they act. Because while I'm not sure if there's some kind of hierarchy with them, they do kind of seem like they could just be little minions.
Hmm.
It'd be the difference of like if you watch lions and you had a bunch of, lioness that kind of do most of the work. That makes sense.
Like the hunting, you mean?
And then you just have the male that'll just kind of stand there and stare you down while the rest of them are doing what they're doing,
Hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's definitely a hierarchy. I get it. Totally makes sense.
So that's kind of the first little bit of sleep paralysis that I've had, but I have tons of more stories that we could get way more in depth on.
Oh, for sure. And we will. You know, it's funny, and I'll just add this portion in because I've had some sleep paralysis, but the thing I've most experienced, which is in the same realm, you know, you mentioned that buzzing, that high pitched noise in your ears. There's actually a thing called exploding head syndrome, and I had no idea that that was a thing until way later after I had been experiencing it. But it's actually pretty common as well. It's like 10-15% of people experience that phenomena. When I had first experienced it, I was home alone, and I had, you know, there was two dogs in crates in another room, and I was dead asleep and straight from REM to awake as fast as you possibly could think of because I heard this louder than life explosion. Like, I swear it happened outside just past the wall that was in my bedroom, like right there. It was so incredibly loud. It scared me so badly, and I was pretty young, but it scared me so badly. I went and grabbed the dogs in their crates and brought them in my bedroom
Oh,
and
wow.
slept the rest of the night with them.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, essentially, exploding head syndrome, people experience this, and it ranges from the sound of fireworks and gunfire to thunder and lightning. And they explain it as your brain is like a computer, and it just shut down all the programs at once, and you're hearing the noise of your brain basically shutting off and resetting.
Interesting.
Yeah, kind of weird.
Yeah, that's definitely weird. I wonder if people with certain types of PTSD experience this, or if they link this to a type 2 night terrors.
It could be. I'd have to research more. I mean, essentially, it's like all the neurons in your brain are firing at once, which is what creates the sound you hear, quote unquote sound, because it's not really there. So it could definitely be part of, you know, a trauma link of some sort. Very strange.
Very strange.
Well, this has been an excellent episode, Percival.
Indeed, V.
And I think we'll wrap it up from here, don't you think?
Yeah, I feel like what I want to do is maybe for this sleep paralysis episode, maybe we should give them some more stories on this.
Okay.
So we can have a part 2 for sleep paralysis, and then I can get into more of the other two entities because I'm sure everybody wants to know exactly which two I'm talking about and kind of what revolves around these two. So maybe we'll split this one up into two, and I can go into depths on these two shadow entities.
I'm down. Yeah. And that'll definitely, I mean, in the next episode on sleep paralysis, we won't go as research heavy either since we've already done that. We'll just refer back to this episode unless there's something we need to correct or we can add to it, and then we'll go from there. It has been such a pleasure, dreamers, and keep on dreaming. And
Next week, part 2, sleep paralysis demons.
Demon.
And with that said, dreamers, join us in discovering what may lie beyond the walls of sleep.